Greetings, all, and welcome to Cochise Convos, a podcast dedicated to sharing your stories and information about Cochise College. This is episode 14 of Cochise Convos Quarantine Edition, where we'll be listening to your stories as students and administrators and how you've managed to adjust during the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, my guest is Lauren Gladwell, who's an academic advisor at Cochise College, and today he's going to be sharing his experience assisting students in their academic and career goals during the pandemic. Lauren, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome. We're so excited to have you on the show. So in general, how was the quarantine period for you? And were you quarantined with anyone or were you by yourself?
Quarantine was very interesting. It happened at a time that was interesting. What we were doing at the colleges, it was one of our slow months because it wasn't during registration period. So it's during a month where usually we're either doing administrative work or helping students fill out educational planners for their CPD 150 classes. And so for me particularly, what had happened was, this was in the middle of March. And so my wife and son and I, we had actually gone on vacation because it was a slow month. So we went on vacation for a week. So the first Sunday when we got back, that's when the campus shut down. And so they called us and they said, you know what, we're not going back to work for the time being. We don't know what the time frame is. Expect to work from home going forward. And so it was really very interesting because I'd just been off for a week. I'd been expecting to come back to the office, jump right into it, get to work, and that just didn't happen. That's not what we ended up doing. We ended up doing something that we've never done before, which is work remotely from home. And so, luckily, we kind of had an office space set up in my home, so I had a place to work. It's just I never expected I'd be working there. As an academic advisor, it was a very different experience. And, like I said, with quarantine, I have a wife, I have a son, so we were all quarantined together. So it wasn't like I was alone. For me, it was a breeze. I'm really quite an introverted person. Like my wife says all the time, social distancing, that was made for you. You're perfect at that. I'm like, yep, I absolutely am. For work and things, I'm very good at faking being an extrovert. But really, I'm an INFJ and the Myers-Briggs and all that. And so I know advisors who are extroverts. I know that for them, it was very difficult being separated and basically stuck in home the whole time. And so what was nice is during the time, we would have constant meetings, every week or every couple of days if we could, as advisors through Zoom. We were keeping contact. We were supporting each other. So that was very nice. And the quarantine period, it wasn't as, I think, lonely as some people's, not just because I had my wife and I had my son, but also because I had the whole advising team supporting each other, making sure we were doing okay, and we really did make sure we were doing okay. If you're a call at the same time, we're going through a little toilet paper shortage, and so there are times when some of us didn't have certain needs, and so the other ones will go out and get those for those advisors and help them out. So it was very nice to be able to be supported by such a great team.
That's fantastic. And helping each other out during these challenging times is so important. So thank you for sharing that. Mm-hmm. And as an academic advisor at the college, can you walk us through the parameters of your position and how your role was impacted by the pandemic?
Absolutely. So, being an academic advisor specifically at Cochise College, it's a very evolving position. And so what we do is there's two periods of the year. There's the busy periods during registration, and then there's the quiet periods in between those times. And so for the quiet periods, what we do is we work on more administrative stuff. So answering emails, we work on our personal goals. This is a time when we really help students do their educational planners from their CPD 150 classes, that sort of thing. So that's when we're really looking for stuff to do. During the busy periods, during registration, we don't really have much room to breathe because there's so much that we're doing. And so really what we do during those periods is we meet with students, preferably face-to-face, so that we can have that one-on-one connection so we can build rapport and really be able to help them. The first thing we'd really do, though, with our initial meeting is we talk with the students, we find out what they like. We say, hey, you like this hobby. Have you ever considered doing this as a career? If so, have you ever considered this specific degree that we offer? We can also advise on careers and career goals. And what we really end up doing is if it's a brand new student straight out of high school or if it's a student that has never been to college, We have them take an AccuPlacer test, or we look at other ways that we can possibly place them into classes. We determine what's the best starting point for them, and we try to get them into that starting point. And so the registration period is just our busiest time because it's a lot of sitting down, meeting very different individuals for the first time, and being able to connect uniquely with those individuals, on a case-by-case basis, because not all students are the same. So we have to, even in those things that we usually do, we have to be ready to completely change the way we're thinking from person to person. So it's really interesting. It's really fun. I love advising. I love what we do. It's nice to be able to meet so many different people. And it's an absolutely fantastic feeling to be able to help people identify what their goals are and then help them meet those goals.
Thank you for shedding light on that, because that is very important. And with that in mind, how did you modify your administrative operations to accommodate to the social distancing guidelines?
So like I mentioned before, it is very interpersonal what we do. So face-to-face contact is it's very important as an advisor. It's part of that, communication process of building that relationship with the students. And so being remote, that's something that we have had to adjust greatly to figure out how to do that. Of course, Zoom is so far the best way to do that because we do still have the face-to-face component. Some things are lost in like body language translation, but I mean, it is what it is. At least you can still talk to a student face-to-face. So one thing we have had to adjust is on the Sierra Vista campus, those advisors are working in the community room in the student union building. And here on Douglas campus where I am, we are working in the business building in one of the large computer labs, so we can still have that social distancing. And so what we're doing is we have spit guards up, we're all using masks, we're cleaning everything. As soon as a student comes, as soon as they leave, we're wiping everything down, making sure it stays clean. So basically our jobs have become much more meticulous in what we do. We have to be paying attention, and we have to make sure that we are keeping up on cleaning and all that good stuff. Some of us are working from home a couple of weeks while everyone else is in the office a couple of weeks, and we are trading that every 2 weeks. The idea being, the period for this virus is supposed to be a 2-week period. So if you're going to be at home or if you're going to be in the office, it makes sense to do in 2-week intervals in order to mitigate that spread of the virus. And so those who are working from home, they have to have either gotten a laptop or gotten some sort of a PC that they can use to get into our systems to do emails. And they also need to have received remote access to their office computers, because there's some systems that we are not allowed to access from a private server. It has to be from a Cochise College server. So we had to get special permission to get this remote access so we can remote into our office computers. And that, when that was first set up, that was a whole thing in and of itself, trying to make it work. But yeah, so really it's been a lot of understanding how to keep those social distance guidelines while keeping the interpersonal communications with the students so that we can advise them in the best absolute way possible.
Absolutely. And with the pandemic, it has highlighted some of the importance of essential career fields. And with this focus in mind, did you notice an increase of students changing their majors during this period? And if you have, what were their most common choices and reasons for doing so?
This is a really interesting question. I really like this question. And the simple answer is honestly, no. We did not, at least me, myself, I did not see a lot of students wanting to change their majors and their career field. I say it's interesting because at the college, we've been talking a lot about what's going to happen going forward. And something that President Rottweiler has mentioned a lot is with pandemics, you're never really sure what's going to happen because there's one of two scenarios. Either no one is going to want to go to school and your enrollment numbers are going to drop because nobody wants to be out and about, or your enrollment numbers are going to increase because lots of people are out of work now and they've realized, you know what, to avoid this in the future, I need a different career and I need to get a different education. And so as advisors, we also kind of wondered, how much are we going to see students wanting to change majors? Like I said, it hasn't really happened. Students haven't really wanted to change majors. What I have noticed happening is students want to understand their major better. And so this time, of course, we still had the students who wanted to just get their basics out of the way, those Englishes and maths. but there was a huge influx of students saying, I've heard about this degree. What is that degree? What does it get me into? What is that field of work? What do they do? And then we've had returning students who have said, I'm an elementary major. What is that going to mean when I'm done? What kind of jobs am I going to find when I'm done? And so that's something that we as advisors have always advised on, and we try to advise on careers because that's the whole point of education, is to get a student into a career that they want to be in. And so it's been interesting seeing this influx, not in changing majors, but in students wanting to understand what their goals are a little bit better.
That's great. And definitely that heightened awareness of, hey, what happens after I get this degree is
Right.
so important to consider. And I'm glad that that has definitely been a welcome change
Yes.
since this. So that's fantastic. And with the beginning of the semester already underway, how can meeting with an academic advisor set students on the path for success, especially with all the changes catalyzed by COVID?
Right. So I sort of touched on this a little bit before. We have the busy months, we have the not busy months. So busy months, well, busy periods, I should rather say, just ended with registration that just ended. Of course, you can still register for second 8-week courses, those that start in October and then end in December if you want to. But really what we do during these periods, especially for students, like I said, is this is the time where we kind of stop, we breathe, we assess what happened during registration so that we can kind of try to assess what sort of outreaches we need to do with our students going forward. And so this is the time where each of us as an advisor, we have assigned students. And so these students, they're my students. I claim them as my students as an advisor. And so what that means is with my students, I can pull reports to see what my students are studying. I can see what kind of degrees they're in. I can keep track of their academic process. And so during this time after registration, what my main responsibility is to keep in contact with my students to make sure that they're doing okay. If I notice something's a little miss, like maybe they're struggling with a specific class, or maybe they're struggling with their GPA or something like that, then it's my responsibility to reach out to them and say, hey, I see that this is going on. What can we do to make this better? How can I help you as an advisor? The pandemic really hasn't changed this. If anything, it's augmented the importance of it, because now most students are not on campus. Most classes are not face-to-face. And so that's where we as advisors really jump in, because we are actively reaching out to the students saying, are you having issues with anything? Is there anything at all I can answer? How can I help you?
Fantastic, and that's wonderful. What is the best way to contact your academic advisor?
Right now, the best way is through email, and we have an advising inbox. It is just advising@coacheast.edu. That's the best way to contact us. Like I said, we have an online letter cut. Mine is RJ to ST. And so when emails come in, they immediately go into our letter cuts, and we immediately look at them and see what we need to do to answer that student. Generally, we'll answer them right away, especially if we're not busy doing something else. And so they get a reply pretty quick. The rule of thumb is we need to answer within 24 hours. So at least within 24 hours, they will have an answer. Aside from email, the other best way is to contact our offices through the phone numbers that are on the website. There's the Sierra Vista office, and there's also the Douglas office. Honestly, it doesn't matter which one you contact. You'll probably be talking to either Kimberly Campbell or Cesar Noriega, and both of them are fantastic. Both of them can get you to wherever you need to get to, no matter which campus you're calling. So email is the first way to do it, especially if you want to talk to an advisor directly. Phone call is the second way to do it, because then Kim or Cesar can set up an appointment for you, whether it be through Zoom or whether it be face-to-face using the social distancing guidelines.
Fantastic. We're going to shift gears a little bit. And my next question is, and you can take this down any route, whether it be personally or professionally, what were some of the positives and negatives of the quarantine period and the pandemic in general?
Sort of like I was kind of mentioning before, I think the biggest negative is people suddenly realize that social interaction is very important. That without social interaction, we kind of go crazy. Human beings, even it doesn't really matter if you're introverted or if you're extroverted. human beings need to have social interaction of some level. And so for me, there's more positives due to this pandemic and the quarantine than there are negatives. And some of those positives are, anytime something terrible happens in human history, humans are very good about banding together and supporting each other. And so that's something that we've seen in this pandemic. Specifically, I can say, for the college itself, being an employee at the college, we have been very good about banding together as people who work at the college. We've been very good about banding together and supporting each other and supporting our students. And that's always been our number one priority, is supporting our students and how can we help them. And so this pandemic, when life is good and things are good, you start to be a little lax and you start to maybe not be as consistent or as good with certain things as you should be. Whereas when life is hard, you start to realize what's important, and then you start to work harder to fulfill those things which are important. And that's something as an employee at the college that I have seen happen during these last few months, is everyone coming together, working together, and determining ways that we can not only be better employees, but that we can better support our students and help them receive or get to the goals that they want to get to.
That's fantastic. Lauren, it has been a pleasure getting the chance to speak with you today. And my final question for you before we wrap up today's episode is, do you have any suggestions for how we should proceed with education post-quarantine and post-COVID?
Well, you should always be ready for whatever happens. And I mean, we really saw that just recently for the first time. I think, in our generation, the last time something like this has really happened was 100 years ago. And so most of that generation is gone. And so they can't really tell us what it was like. So we're really experiencing this for the first time. And it's hard to prepare for things that you don't understand. It is so difficult to do that. But you can always have a plan in place. And so the thing with education is, the best thing that a nation can do is educate its individuals. And so that's something that we have in this nation, and it's something that we should absolutely embrace, is education, higher education. The best thing an individual can do for themselves is be educated. And so if you are someone who wants an education, what you always need to do is set aside different plans as to what's going to happen, because you don't know what's going to happen. And so going forward, I think that we need to understand it, and we need to understand how remote learning works. And so the best advice I can give for any student as far as education going forward is, don't give up on yourself, because just because you're experiencing some sort of difficulty at the moment doesn't mean that you'll continue experiencing that difficulty going down the road. But besides that, you as a student, you have every capacity to learn, and therefore you have every capacity to learn how to overcome any obstacle that comes in your way. So if you are having difficulties with your education, if you are having difficulties figuring out what you need to do, then reach out to us, the advisors. That's why we're here. We're here to help you get through any obstacle that you do come in contact with. And so there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to overcome those obstacles, because you have a support base. You have your instructors, you have the advisors, you have really anyone at any college you go to is going to be more than happy to help you receive your education.
Fantastic. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you all for watching and listening along with us. If you like what you hear, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe below to Cochise College's YouTube channel. And be sure to click the little bell icon to enable post notifications so you get a notification every time that we post. Thank you again, Lauren, and have a great day, everyone.